Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's webinar to hear from Prima's machine learning platform team about how they built an AI system that delivers personalized insurance quotes in real time. It's going to be a really fun conversation with super useful takeaways for anybody trying to implement mission critical customer facing apps. So let's get into it. First, I'd like to introduce Lorenzo and Gianluca on the Prima team. All right.
Oh,
Good to
Ciao.
see you both. Ciao. Buonasera for you.
good morning to you.
Thank you. Grazie. So, thank you both so much for joining. I'd love to start by having you just share a little bit more about who you are and what you do at Prima.
Well, I'll start, John, and I'm Lorenzo, as you can see from my name down there. I've been working in Prima for years. I'm a father of two. I have a wife, and as you can see, a cat. And in Prima, I'm a senior engineering manager, which basically means that I'm kind of hovering on everything that regards ML right now in the company, especially in the pricing side, together with John, that
It's
is that
me.
guy.
Yeah, I'm Gianluca. Nice to meet you all. I started working here, I think was something like 2019, so it's quite a long time. I started actually back in the past as a data scientist. I'm proud. I always say that I was the second data scientist in the team. And then after a couple of years, I crossed the bridge and I became a product manager. And right now I'm a senior product manager for the team that is in charge of developing actually the machine learning platform. So here, actually, we're done, but I think that the last piece that we need to introduce is Prima. That is the company we work for. Actually, Prima is an insurtech, quite young because we are less than 10 years old. We started in 2015 in Italy, just in Italy for the online market. And right now we grow a lot. We are in 3 countries with online market and also offline market, so with agents. And we have something like more than 3 million customers. So was a quite big growth for us. And we are still expanding. And we are here actually to talk with you about what were the challenge actually, the technical challenge, and what we are currently doing to be able to continue this growth that we have. In particular, focusing on the pricing, that is the core of our activity.
Yeah, because we're selling piece of paper in the end, and they are costly piece of paper, but the number we put on it is what gives us the advantage over the competition. So pricing is, of course, at the center of our focus.
And that's really what I wanted to talk about today was how pricing is so core to your competitive advantage. So, how does your real-time AI system really contribute to that?
I'll take this one. Yeah, so actually, our machine learning model predict the risk of our clients. And this actually allows us to provide a price to our clients in such a way that we can increase our volumes in a profitable way. Pricing, as you can imagine, is the core and is the key of our activity. And I want to spend a couple of words about the fact that compared to other problems, the insurance market is quite a different one. Because if we think about other machine learning application with which you just ask for a prediction and you have, I don't know, something like a suggestion about the movie to watch or something like that, you realize immediately if something goes wrong or the model that you deploy was good in the result and the impact that can have. In insurance, it's a bit more complicated because our challenge actually is to predict the future. Not the future just the 1 minute after the prediction happened, But what we want to do is to try to understand in 1 year what is the risk of our client. So the probability of having a crash, how costly is this crash? And so these actually bring everything to be, let's say, really, really precise. We don't have room for mistakes, because at the end you are going to realize the mistakes 2 years after, and at that point it's too late to take action. So coming back to your question, everything actually that we do is real time for two main reasons. First thing first, we want the last information available for all our clients before trying to do our prediction. And second thing is that if it's the first time that a client try to ask for a price on the Prima website, we have no room to be, let's say, not precise for that particular client. We need to collect all the information that we want, all the information that we have, to try to have the best estimation of the risk that we can. And real time here actually is the key.
Yeah, if I may add,
Yeah, go.
respect to other applications like, I don't know, Netflix, Amazon recommender system and such, usually you know your customer before making the prediction. You have your trained model, maybe customized on the person. You have all the data you need before the customer even connect or log into your platform. For us, that's different because we don't know our customers until they actually need that price. So we need to be faster, we need to be reliable, and we need to collect everything we can about that person. So feature engineering in real time is one of our main focus.
That's a really interesting point. So many companies already know so much about the user, but you need to be collecting as much information as possible in the moment. And you're trying to get
Yes.
the closest thing to a real crystal ball for the future, and you have to get it right. And so that's obviously really challenging to do on the engineering front. So I wanted to ask, what do you think are the most interesting technical challenges that you faced in trying to build this system, for insurance pricing that can get you that crystal ball in the most accurate, real-time way possible?
Well, there are different from a technical perspective. Let's say that the main issue is the usual predicting consistency. So the fact that when you train the model, you have an environment, whereas when you are in production, where you are actually inferring or making decisions, you are live, you are connected to live resources, microservices, and everything is different. And by everything, I mean, well, starting from the environment itself. So, for example, the first, let's call them naive attempt of that we had as a company of releasing models was to have different languages even between the environments, the training and production environment. This obviously brought a lot of effort whenever we wanted to move that model in production, because you need to translate it basically. And obviously that's already, and not only that, you have dependencies differences. Even if you have the same language, you have different dependencies. You might have the communication between microservices fairly different from what you have in training. The feature are different because they can be very different. Originally we had feature different by every data scientist data scientist had their own definition of features. So going in production was every time a nightmare. Now, of course, we are moving forward from this, but luckily we're moving forward. But these are the kind of issues we have from, let's say, train predict standpoint. The other thing is, well, speed. We mentioned we are real time and we need to answer to our customers fast, because maybe most people don't go when you're, let's say, quoting online, you usually don't go to a given insurance company because you really are affectionated to them. You want their price. Usually you go to price comparison website. Depending on the market, there are more or less people that have these kinds of practice, but many people go there. And you need to be fast and faster than the competition, at least as fast as the competition. Otherwise, you lose the client because you won't be able to provide let's say, the quote in time. And the other big thing is that we observed is allowing the business teams to make the changes themselves and to be able to, let's say, impact directly how the models online work, evaluate their performance, make changes, maybe slight modifications to the logic even, because you have in an AI system, you have, yes, the model, but most often not, it's surrounded by a lot of logic. And in those situations, you need to allow the business team to make changes directly online. So you need to empower them to be able to do so, which is not obvious at all, because most times they are data scientists. And if you want them to be good at the business, they won't be engineers, full-fledged engineers, let's say. You need someone specialized in that. Those were, let's say, the three main challenges.
Yeah,
Are
that
the
makes a
three
lot
main
of
challenges.
sense. It's a common one. All three of those, the train, predict, inconsistency, speed, empowerment, all of those things we hear across the industry. So it's,
Yeah, exactly.
something I wanted to touch on a little bit more with that in mind, knowing that a lot of people watching this are probably interested in feature consistency. I wanted to ask, how do you handle that challenge of ensuring consistency between your offline training environment and your online serving environment?
On that, Lawrence, if I can take at least the beginning of this question.
Go.
Yeah, I think here the point is not just related to the feature themselves, but I think that first thing first, we need to look at everything that there is also before the feature, because the point is that if you have something that is broken and actually is misaligned, even before the feature, so at the input data level, then also is a big problem. So thinking about the solution that we took, that actually was the adoption of the feature platform, that is Tecton, that solved actually the problem for the feature. You need also to address what there is before, because otherwise, let's say, you can also have, let's say, Tecton that is good for solving the inconsistency of the feature, but you still have, let's say, you don't reach 100% of removing actually the inconsistency between the feature. So this was something about before, but to answer your question, at the end, I already did a bit of spoiler. The solution that we took to remove the misalignment between offline and online was to actually adopt in Tecton. That actually act as a centralized place where the feature is, where the feature store is computed and is served, both for experimentation and for real-time inference. Lawrence, do you want to go maybe a bit deeper in the detail of Tecton?
Yeah, well, the fact that we're using Tecton is quite obvious, as we are being invited to speak here. So it was kind of
It was not
tautologic.
spoiler.
Yeah, not much of a spoiler, yes. But one thing I would like, whoever is listening to be aware of is that it's not painless to move to a platform like Tecton. So it's been a journey we've been following since 3 years now. Tecton was still quite young at the time. And but the thing is that the platform itself is solving a very generic problem, and we need to adapt it to our own use case. We have, and we always had, and we always have a different, let's say, definition of what a feature is respect to Tecton, slightly different, but still it ends up in creating some misalignment about our use case respect to what Tecton solves. We need to, let's say, wrap it around, not wrap it, but include it in our own environment, the microsystem, microservices ecosystem, and that takes effort. So it's been a long journey, and one thing I would like to mention is that you can't just adopt it as it is. Maybe you can, depending on your use case. Our use case was quite peculiar. Let's say there are some things we can't mention that, let's say, didn't allow us to just adopt it. but we ended up creating a sort of wrapper, sort of let's call it an ACL, an anti-corruption layer around Tecton, so that we could use the power of Tecton, of feature engineering, and especially not only storing features, because what we needed was a feature computing platform. So let's say a full-fledged feature platform, as Tecton is, and we needed to build something around it to actually have it work with our ecosystem.
On that, if I can add, also the let's say the other side of the moon here is that even if we had to create this anti-corruption layer, this did not actually prevent us to adopt Tecton. So sometimes it's always something like, in particular, when you try to use external tools and external platform, we have this kind of bias that should be 100% or nothing. But I think it's not the right way of see this kind of problem, because at the end we were able to integrate Tecton with our ecosystem, even if it's, as Lawrence was saying, was not 100% the use cases, but it's possible. And at the end, you need always to balance the impact and the advantage that you gain. So at the end of the day, we put everything there and we say, okay, let's go for it, because improve the life of engineering teams, business team, and at the end, generate impact for Prima.
That's great, because at the end of the day, everybody has a different situation, right? I don't think any particular solution is one size fits all. It's about how is that solution going to make life better, and how is it going to fit in with our existing infrastructure needs, and also what we're planning for the future, right? You had to go on this journey from where you were, and figure out how to incorporate Tecton in a way that was going to make things better for what you needed to do, and you're able to achieve that. So that's actually what I wanted to tackle next, was having you walk us through the evolution of your feature management infrastructure for the beginning. So from trying to develop in-house through adopting Tecton and adding that custom wrapper that you were talking about. What were kind of the key decision points in this journey?
Yeah, well, as I was mentioning, when I joined Prima, every data scientist had, and there wasn't only two of them, so there was not only John then. There were already some. Everybody had their own definition of features. Then we had the definition in production. They were five basically completely different definitions. I mean, obviously it's not entirely different. The concept was the same, but the implementation was different. So the value they had in production was different, and the prediction, of course, in the end was not what we wanted. And that gave us some pains, let's say. So the first things we did, one of the infamous things I'm known of for in Prima is for creating this sort of internal feature computing, let's call it platform, but it's basically a library that centralized the definition for the data scientists at least. So we had only to, let's say, align two entities. Then we kind of discovered the existence of feature stores. At the time, it was still feature stores, not platform, because I mean, this market is quite young. There are new things happening every time. So we got in contact with Tecton. We explored a bit the market. We evaluated several different, let's say, competitors for it. And honestly, we also, let's say, tried or at least thought of building our own, because in the end, how difficult can it be to build a feature store, right?
How hard
We
can it be?
decided, yeah, how hard
That's
can
where
it
everyone
be?
starts.
Yeah. I mean, if it is a feature store, again, it can even done. But if you want to build a feature platform, it brings a lot of more complex topics to manage, a lot of, let's say, user stories that need to be balanced and so on and so forth. So in the end, we decided not to move forward with this idea. And we obviously opted for Tecton. And at the time, it wasn't even the Tecton it is now. We established a close collaboration with with you guys. We had some chat with Kevin, with Mike, and so on. So and then basically I kind of got off the project because we approved Tecton, we were happy, and it was only a matter of introducing it actually in Prima, which is something that Jan took over at the time.
Yes. So actually, after the selection of the tool that was Tecton, we were super happy. But then there was the big waves at the end that was, okay, now we need to adopt and to migrate our entire feature system into Tecton. That part actually is the most complicated one, but we took several approaches for different countries. So at the beginning, we were launching a new country, and so we decided to go all in and say, okay, let's use Tecton to improve the feature experience for this new country. And this was, if you want, also a proof of the value of Tecton in one country and then expand to the others. That challenge was definitely because it was the first time that we did this kind of migration, and consider also that we are not using Tecton for something that is not business critical. Here we are using Tecton for something that is business critical. So if we have problems, we are going to sell zero policies for days, and this is something that we want to avoid. So was also, we were a bit also worried at the time. But the first country, actually, we had a greenfield. So we were able to adopt Tecton in a situation where everything around was evolving. We were not even live at that time. So we were able to test, we were able to integrate everything together. So what sits before, what is after, and that worked actually really, really well. Then, clearly, when you have a story of success in one country, then the point is that, okay, let's go to the bigger market that is Italy. That is the situation was a bit different because we would have been amazing, but we can't do it. You can't stop everything for, 6 months and say, see you in 6 months if you want an insurance. Right now we are busy doing immigration. No, you can't do it. So I like to say that was actually a surgery, an open heart surgery. And this is something that was completely different from the challenge that we have at the beginning, because you need to integrate Tecton in a rolling environment first, and then you need to do it gradually. And there is also an additional part that is you need also to migrate things. Because in the first scenario, we started already with Tecton, so no migration was needed. It was more the adoption of Tecton. In Italy, was completely different because there is a migration that we are doing from the existing feature to the current feature ecosystem to the new feature platform. This is something that we are currently doing, and so far so good, I would say, but we still have work to do because, again, the complexity also of the market is bigger.
Got it. Thanks for walking us through that. And that actually brings us to one of the first questions I'm seeing in the chat. So we talked a little bit about how you started out with potentially trying to build in-house, and you evaluated a few different options. So one question we got was, they were curious, what was your thinking when deciding whether to use a platform like Tecton versus an option where you'd be able to self-host in the future as needed, such as an open source feature store? So was there any decision making? Because there are so many challenges and limitations with those other approaches. Could you walk us through more of those?
Well, I kind of mentioned it. The main, at least for me at the time, killing feature for Tecton, non-killing, killer feature for Tecton was the fact that it was actually, the term wasn't even there in the market, but it was maybe at the time the only one that also made the feature computation. So it included and executed the actual code and the definition of the feature itself. Some other feature stores, where actual feature store where you store the feature and you put them into, let's say, different databases, whether optimized for latency or optimized for throughput. But Tecton didn't only do that, and doesn't only do that. By now, there are several alternatives that do the same, several feature platforms. Now that the term even exists, but at the time it wasn't like that. So that was the reason why we went with Tecton, and that's it basically. The reason why we didn't decide to build it was mostly a matter of core competencies and purpose of the company. To be honest, we are an insurtech. We have a passion for tech, but throwing ourselves into an endeavor such as building a whole tool this big was too early for us, and not viable, let's say, economically.
Yeah. Well, you
And
want to be able to focus on other important tasks
yeah,
and other parts
exactly,
of the business instead of having to build all this stuff that you don't have to build by
Yeah.
adopting Tecton. So that makes sense.
If I can also add something on that, I think that this is consideration that I do right now, looking at the past. Also, the fact to have a company that support you in like Tecton, that support you when you have problems, when you want to, let's say, to have let's say new features, new capability of the platform. I think is also an advantage compared to, well, in-house was okay, we keep everything for us, we develop everything internally, but also considering some open sources approach, having someone that, let's say, can help you. Also drafting maybe solution, understanding how Tecton can be integrated in the best way, I think is definitely a plus if I'm looking back in the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and one last bit as well.
Yeah.
Well, it could occur to me. It might be my manager nature that comes out, but when you have a teams, several teams of people working, you need to ask yourself, what is that brings you the most value, and not only the most value, but the most competitive advantage. So Prima's business being insurance is building features that are better than anyone else, and models, of course, but to build better models, you need features. Features are everything, as our head of pricing in Italy loves to say. So since that's our advantage, it's not worth it to spend your efforts in something else. It won't bring you more money. It will waste your resources of things that you won't be better than others are doing.
For sure.
Probably.
For
Or
sure.
maybe yes.
No, yes. I mean, for your business, it's absolutely critical, right? If you're not able to deliver the features that you need to at the exact moment you need to. So that makes a lot of sense. Another question related is someone was curious about your tech stack. Can you expand a little bit on the technologies you're using, maybe at the time you were implementing Tecton and what it looked like to incorporate Tecton into your tech stack?
Yes, let's say that I don't think there's any things that I can't say on the technical stuff because that's public on the JD, I would assume. Let me think about it. Well, one thing we obviously lean on is, well, besides Tecton, our cloud technologies. Our main provider is AWS. Our language of choice is, well, not of course, but given the ML nature of our pricing teams, it's Python, but across the company, we have several other stacks. Let's say every Prima is split, the engineering part of Prima is split in domains. A kind of each domain has its own technical stack. Not very different from each other, but there are some very quite peculiar differences. And what else? I would ask this person what he would be most interested with because the technical stack is quite big. I wouldn't know where to go.
Yep, makes sense.
So if he wants to add or she wants to add, very welcome.
I will monitor the chat to see if we have any updates there. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
I think we can move on a little bit to the next things I wanted to ask. So, as you're building this, I wanted to ask, like, when you're implementing a feature platform, how did it impact your model development and development cycles? Have you seen improvements in time to market for new models, perhaps?
Yeah, this is a good question because you have two kinds of advantage here. Let's say compared to when you look at it, because when you do some kind of a migration like this, at the beginning, clearly you think. Let's say if you want to measure the success of a migration, the first 2 weeks of the migration, probably you're going to be disappointed because at the beginning, let's say you need a warm up in terms of starting to be familiar with this new technology, develop the expertise to use this technology. If instead of the 2 weeks, you start to evaluate 6 months, 1 year, then you definitely can see the benefit. We have seen that having 3 countries, not all of them are actually using using Tecton as a feature platform. You can compare a bit the use cases. So where Tecton is, creating feature is definitely more easier. And this means that you have two kind of advantage. Faster time to market. So you can take the feature, go into production in, I don't know, days instead of weeks and months. And the second part is that you can also increase the complexity of the feature. Because with actually the feature platform, you give the freedom to the data scientist and the business team that create the feature to create the feature their own and to not put in some kind of limits. In the first, actually the second or third question, Lawrence was mentioning the empowerment. This is actually what means actually having the feature platform in a team. So the team that think about the feature is the one that create the feature, is the one that deploy the feature. So everything is there. Nobody in the company knows better than that team that feature. And so you put also a safety net on misalignment, problem, unexpected behavior. You close everything together. So long term, clearly, you need to have patience. But as soon as you, let's say, raise your hand a bit, goes definitely in the right direction.
We had a question in the chat actually about how long did it take for users and to adopt Tecton and what groups of users you have. And that's kind of related to a question I had about your organizational structure. Like, what does your MLOps community look like, your cross-functional teams? You just touched on that a little bit, but I want you to expand there more and tell us about what it looks like to actually have users adopt Tecton and what that looks like at Prima.
Right, John. I'll take it quite broad, so I'll try to take all the points. If I miss something, please, Alex, tell me.
Yeah.
So starting from how do we build a community and how we are organized? We are organized in business teams and platform teams. The platform teams is, for example, represented right now by John. He is following the development of global tools and practices and so on and so forth. Whereas I'm more involved right now in the, let's say, technical bit of our business teams. What we focused on is to build cross-functional teams. The way Prima is organized, it means that we have teams from different departments, which makes up for a cumbersome organizational structure. But that brings a lot of value. One thing that we've spent the last 4 years, let's say, debating about and trying to improve. And we are one of the very few things that we are sure of that we got right is that we need to build teams that have both the business soul and the technical one. The business soul is represented by the scientists that knows the feature best, that know the use case, the market, and so on and so forth, and the engineers, machine learning engineers, data engineers, whatever. But they know better the infrastructure. They know how to deploy these things. They know better how to even basic stuff, like they are much more experienced with using Git, which sounds dumb, but it's a very important piece of our infrastructure, of any CI/CD pipeline. So knowing this stuff and having these kinds of competencies in the same team is what gave us really a boost in the way we are able to develop, to deliver value to Prima. And internally, then, of course, you can't just isolate these teams around and hope for the best. We have several communities of practice. We have hackathons. We have several ways of making the information flow, and it's never enough. There's always someone that didn't know about this. I don't know, Notion page or best practice or whatever. Um, Also, me and Gian are trying to stop, and that's the sort of the last bit of the organizational and community. Then I go to the question, the question from the person. We are trying to organize a sort of, well, not sort of, the MLOps community for Italy and Milan. We are trying to launch it in the next few months. We'll hope for the best that someone is interested into it. So that also not only having an sorry, company community, but also let's say a country at least, because it's harder to be broader than that. To go to the question, can you repeat it to me, please? I'm sure I didn't answer, but I'm not sure I
It was
remember it well.
broad, yeah. Sorry about that. It they
No,
were
no.
just curious what, how long did it take for users to adopt Tecton and what the initial
All right.
feedback was?
Well,
If
the
you want, I
initial
can.
feedback, well,
If you
I
want, I
want
can take it. But go for
give
the
that
initial feedback
uh,
because I know.
Yes,
yeah.
what was the feedback initially and how did it change over time? So you'll get to
Yeah,
elaborate
well,
a
the
little more.
initial feedback with platform, we have a funny anecdote about some of our guys being at an event in Toronto and speaking with Mike, telling him that the initial feedback to the platform was that it was barely usable. So that was 3 years ago. With Tecton, Tecton, as I said, had some killer features, but still the platform was young. There were several use cases that were uncovered for us, and it lacked a bit of documentation. And the first data scientists that adopted it, and even the engineers that adopted it, had some, let's say, concern about the usability and so on. I'd say that with the journey that's been these 3 years, the situation is far different. For the teams that have adopted it and have completed the migration right now are very capable of developing features by themselves, putting them into production, using them in their models, and so on and so forth. I don't know, John, if you want to add something there.
No, no. About how long does it take to use it? I think it's as soon as you fix, let's say you organize well and you know where to go, it's not really complicated to then start. Then the journey of the migration depends on your approach to the migration. So if you decided to do one-shot migration, then maybe the time that you need is probably higher in terms of the effort. Or you can do, as for example, we're doing right now, a gradual migration. So you bring stuff when there is value. So it's more, if you want, it's less costly, considering the effort, and it's more impactful. This is, let's say, on the migration part, everyone can choose the best for the use case. Actually, depends also really on the use case. As I said before, we cannot stop our operation and stop selling policies.
Cool. Thanks for answering that. I also got more detail on the person who asked about the tech stack. So they asked maybe the most important model frameworks you use, if you're able to share, such as scikit-learn, PyTorch, and then also any important serving infrastructure tools like, for example, MLflow or Kubernetes.
Well, some bit I can share. The main bit is that in the insurance market, you have interpretability concern, both for regulatory, let's say, restrictions, and because being it core, being it the main source of our competitive advantage, you want to be able really to be sure as to why this customer is getting more or less of a price, right? You don't want to, you might not have data about the whole market, so you want to be precise at that. That limits sort of the scope of models we can use. I can't get into details, but one thing important that me and John were talking about the other day was that our focus is not to use a specific technology. So it's not like, no, we want to use PyTorch. No, it's better to use Scikit or whatever. We want to use the model that brings the most value and that fits best the use case. So we had different explorations a long time with different tools. If innovation is welcome, of course, so the people can take their time to test new models, new technologies, and so on and so forth. And then they need to prove it fits best the use case. About instead other tools besides the specific technology we use for models. We use, well, MLflow has been mentioned, for example, and there are every team has a bit of a different stack again, but for the global tools, we are moving forward that. Well, we are kind of adopting it for some bit of our stack.
Got it.
Like
Cool.
model
Thanks for answering
registry
that.
and so on.
So, on a related note to infrastructure, in addition to features, how are you ensuring that everything else is consistent?
Yeah. This actually is definitely an important question because the if you fix the inconsistency of the feature, but then you stop there, then everything is useless. Well, it's not everything, but almost. In this situation, when you need to deal with the inconsistency, what you need to do is a bit everything or nothing. If you have just one piece that is not that start this alignment, then all the effort that you put in the other part is quite vain. Here, actually, in Prima, we are building an ML platform to try to close the gap, so remove the inconsistency across all the steps of the model lifecycle. In other words, can be seen as applying the philosophy of the feature platform also to the other component. And this means the preprocessing part, this means the modeling part, and also the deployment at the end. The idea is that what we want to do is to be fast in developing the new models, because what we want at the end, and this is also something that Lawrence was mentioning before, we want to bring impact. So this is our main activity. So to enable the business team to bring impact to the company. But while doing that, we want to do it without mistakes, because otherwise, if you remember at the beginning, there was a 2-year lag and with this money. So what we are currently doing is to try to build something, and Tecton as a feature platform is a part of it, that is able to stay with the business team from the feature development to the model development to the validation of the model until everything goes into production. So it's a bit an end-to-end that we want to do. If we put stuff here and there and we'll not try to centralize everything in one, let's say, platform, that can be a problem, because you don't have anymore the inconsistency between online and offline, but you can have other inconsistency. So the point is that we want to address all the problems that we have with just one tool, one platform. Clearly, it's not something that we are going to, as demonstrated by the fact that we are using Tecton, it's not everything built in-house. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If there is someone that is selling or maintaining a product that is good and fits our use cases, then we adopt it and incorporate it with our feature platform, with our machine learning platform. I was speaking about feature before.
Got it. Got it. Thanks for walking us through that. So, just I think we have time for a couple more questions. So, one I wanted to bring us back to is the insurance industry. So, just looking ahead, what do you see as the next big technical challenges in applying AI to insurance pricing?
Well, thinking about the next technical channel is we are already we have our hands full with the current technical challenges already. So it's difficult to say. I would say that, and this is kind of a bold statement, we understood finally, probably and thoroughly the problem. I mean, what we want to do, how to align the environments, how to, let's say, build the pipelines and CI/CD, the integration in a way that allows us to be fast and agile and so on and so forth. What we didn't understand yet, and we are in the process of doing it, of course, is how to streamline all of this. So how to make things simple, because right now there are a lot of people, John's team, but also all the business teams are collaborating, and not only John's team, but actually there are other teams in the ML platform, are collaborating for making this happen. And in the future, the idea would be that the platform would be much more easy to use, to make data scientists much, let's say, even naive, if you want, technically, because they don't need to have concerns about what's underlying their deployment, which is something we can't afford right now, and so on and so forth. We want to have fewer people, not fewer because we want to fire them, but fewer in the sense that for each model, we need fewer people to take care of them, to make sure they're maintained right, monitored right, and so on and so forth, and have them more agile, and to, let's say, be able to follow more ideas, more innovation, more initiatives, and so on and so forth. So being fast is what we want to improve yet. And the other bit, if I may add, is that right now it's a more of a managerial, if you want, not very technical concern. But there's all this talk about Gen AI. The market is moving towards that direction because there's a lot of hype, which from one side is good because all those people that are not really interested are moving there instead of focusing on this. On the other side, um, it creates a lot of noise. You need to be better understanding what tools are right for your use case, and brings a lot of new people in the market, but you need very talented people to make these kinds of things happen. So sort of everybody, and by everybody it's obviously not true, but it's easier to build a complex system than a simple one. For building a simple one, you need very talented people, and finding them is quite difficult because the market is new, there are no best practices, and so on. So this is, well, my main concern right now, because I'm building these teams. Of course, I can't not mention it.
It's hard to talk about the machine learning and AI industry in general without mentioning generative AI and what that's going to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
That I love what
And
you
on
said.
that,
It's so much harder to make it simple. Go ahead.
on that, if I can add, if I can comment clearly, we are here waiting for, let's say, we are always looking for new technologies. Let's say we always respect the market. We keep us updated about the new technology because we are always there. Let's say it's impressive the development that this market had in the last 2 years. So we are there waiting for, let's say, at the door, waiting for the right technology that can be, let's say, released, I don't know, tomorrow, the day after, that can really be a game changer for an insurance company. Right now, still we have, let's say, more let's say practical stuff to solve, but there is definitely room for improvement in the technological stuff here.
For sure. So we talked a little bit about the future and what you think is happening next. We had a great question in the chat that's a really practical one about monitoring. So does your ML ecosystem allow business teams to provide input, or experiment with the live systems? And how do you monitor that their changes don't break the system or cause unexpected predictions? So what monitoring tools are used along the ML lifecycle?
Yes, these actually we are currently evaluating the adoption of a monitoring tool that has exactly this goal to be able to be always aware of the health status of what is in production, and this span from features, from model prediction, from business logic, whatever. Clearly, this was always not the top priority. No? When you are going to build something for the models, and this actually, if I can, is a bit, let's say, a common mistakes. You always want first something that goes right in production, and then at the end you say, but it has to be true. It has to be good in a production, and then the monitor actually is the last piece. But we are currently going in that direction. Nowadays, we are still not there, but in the various team, we have some kind of clearly we have monitors, not at a technological level maybe that we want, but we cannot afford to not have monitor. But it's more, let's say, case by case, if you want. I don't know, Lorenzo, if you want to add something on.
Yeah, let's say, as John was saying, monitoring something that takes maybe 2 to 5 years to realize is quite difficult. So you won't be able to actually verify whether your prediction was right or wrong, not before you're bankrupt if you do it wrong. So we have several teams that do this. We don't have a centralized tool. So we have some teams that basically their job is to build models to understand whether our models are behaving well, which sounds weird, but we have. And we have also every tool to monitor their own, let's say, model, not the entire, let's say, tariff, but the models. We basically try to log everything we can about the features, the prediction, the metadata of the model, which is something I strongly recommend whoever starts building a machine learning environment or use case. That's very important, because even if now you can't afford to build a proper monitoring tool, someday you will, and you want to be able to assess the historical values, to be able to detect data drift, to be able to, I don't know, make a spike to detect what's happening with your data, building a dedicated dashboard, and so on and so forth. So teams right now, until we wait for John to move, building us a global tools, we have several solutions. One problem is, John mentioned it a bit, is that it's really difficult to prioritize this, because you need to prove to the, let's say, management, but not management to the, but even to yourself, that it's worth doing this instead of something that might bring you millions in the next few weeks. And you say, millions the next few weeks, or an impact I can't estimate at all. And it's always the millions. It's always money, because that you can kind of see. And prioritizing monitoring tools, it's kind of difficult, but we lost a lot. It happened for us that we lost. We had some problems, let's say, in the past due to not having these kinds of tools. We lost customers. We made poor predictions because we didn't realize some movements in the market, and so on and so forth. I mean, you're not in a sphere. You always have your competitors moving around. You want to perceive immediately what's happening.
Great. Thanks for answering that one. So as we wind down, you've done a great job of taking us through your whole journey from start to finish to now. And so where you are now, what has been the business impact of Tecton that you've seen? Because that's what it's about, right? The business outcome that your team is able to make happen.
Yes. The business impact is definitely what we were saying before, that you're going to squeeze completely the time that it goes into production. This is something that is definitely gold. And also, if you're able to put an improvement in production weeks before, this means that you're going to let's say, to increase the policy that you sell, increase the profit that you have, and so these actually play a fundamental role in our market. Also, the ability of reacting really fast to the changes of the market is something that is considered super important for insurances. And with Tecton, we are able to do so for the feature part.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Thanks for sharing about that. So, one last question that I think a lot of folks watching this might have is Prima hiring?
But of course, yes, I was mentioning finding talented people is kind of a difficult endeavor. Right now, we are hiring only in, let's say, our main countries, so Italy, Spain, and UK, and we are hiring for several roles. Obviously, everything related to data, call it however you want. The market doesn't even, well, I mean, the market doesn't even know how to call some of these roles yet, or there's no alignment. But machine learning engineers, data engineer, software engineers that want to be involved in something data related, data scientist. We have lots of open positions. You can scan the QR code that should bring you to the job site, to Prima's job site, and uh, and that's it. So please try.
Sounds like a dream job to me. Get to work with you two all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, sadly there's John, but
Sometimes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for throwing that out there. So if you're interested in Prima, definitely take note of the QR code. And if you're interested in hearing more from Tecton, we do have a major launch event coming up on September 24th. The link is in the chat. So if you want to catch that to get some exciting updates on what's next with Tecton, we've got some big news coming. Don't miss out. So navigate over to that. And also, just thank you both for joining me on this. I feel like we covered a ton and the time really flew. I could spend all day answering the questions that keep coming in the chat. But unfortunately, our time is up for now. So thanks again for having this chat. It was such a great conversation.
Thank you very much.
thank you for inviting us, Alex.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. See you in the next one.